Well, we look on cable as a way of encouraging public action, not just access. Social change comes by the combination of use of media and people getting out on the streets or getting involved. And we find that if people make programs together and put them on the local channel, that gets them involved.
In 1952, a 36-year-old director from North Carolina began making a film that would become a landmark in American nonfiction cinema.
He dared to go where most white people wouldn't go, and that's to watch the birth of a baby in the middle of a town where there's racial tensions going on, and to actually film that birth.
And when you consider the fact that he was going into the Deep South at a time when the racial divisions were hard, they weren't negotiable, and he crossed the color line. That was a very courageous thing to do.
And it was dangerous not just for the Yankees coming on down to the South. It was dangerous for the people who were willing to work with George.
The police pulling up in their vehicles and saying he couldn't be there. And I mean, when you watch that film, it gives me chills to this day just to recall it. We see all the tensions that build up to that one moment. And I remember sitting on the edge of my seat the first time I saw that, squirming and going, oh my God, is this baby going to come out, or what's going to happen here? Where are you thinking, George? What's going on, and how did you do this? When I saw the birth of the child, I almost wanted to leap up in my seat and go, my God, that's incredible. I mean, watching the birth of a child is incredible anyway, but knowing what he went through to do that, and what those people went through to give him that's a beautiful example of a subject allowing themselves to be so vulnerable, to allow him to be there with his camera at that time of life in the midst of that kind of racial tensions.
George is always talking about how your first collaborator in filmmaking are the people in front of the camera. You have to create a relationship with them.
I think that George has such respect for the subjects, and also it cares so much for the way the filmmakers interact with the subjects. He's being guided by, what can I do to lift humanity to some higher level? What can I do to help? Not what can I do to exploit, what can I do to profit, what can I do to make myself famous, but what can I do to help? That's a very important thing to communicate these days, very important. And to have him around as an example of that, not only to the younger filmmakers, but us older guys too, that's something that we should be constantly keeping in our hearts. It's inspiring.
I always thought of George Stoney as first a teacher, as a documentary filmmaker, but also as a social activist who was concerned not just making documentary films to entertain, but documentary films that were going to make a difference.
What can my films do? And that's something he says in his documentary traditions class a lot. The film doesn't end with the screening. There's a discussion after a screening. I mean, you'll see it time and time again with George's films, inside of George's films.
In 1976, Stoney traveled to Ireland, where he created another classic. How the Myth Was Made used Robert Flaherty's film, Man of Erin, to explore ethical questions all filmmakers must grapple with.
In How the Myth Was Made, he actually has one of those screening scenarios. He shows the original Man of Erin to people and then has this great discussion about it.
The Islanders have been arguing about Flaherty's film ever since he left. Some are proud of the hard struggle he dramatized. Others resent being associated with such poverty. Could you tell me what people on the island think of the film?
There were lots of things that never happened really here at all. In other words, it didn't represent the life of the people at all here, do you see?
There's always a dialogue with George, and that dialogue is what changes the world. And that's what I've learned from George.
What you bring into the classroom is the most important thing in the classroom.
In a teaching career that has spanned over 4 decades, George Stoney has taught thousands of students and earned a reputation as the nation's preeminent film educator.
As a mentor, he is unparalleled. I mean, he gives of himself and really cares about what his students are doing and brings energy and enthusiasm to their projects.
And I get a call on the phone with him, and he's saying, I just discovered Paulo Freire. I'm reading his text again and discovering what to do with my students. You know, I can't wait to try this out. This man is 95, been teaching for 40 years, and he's still learning and still excited about learning how to teach.
His staunch advocacy of community-based media has made him universally recognized as the grandfather of public access television.
He is a stand-up filmmaker for the voice of the people. That's a very, very empowering act that George helped create.
I'm always very proud to say that George Stoney is 95, that he's still out there. When someone asks, when are you going to retire? My retort is always, I'm going to stay as long as George Stoney stays.
Certainly the world is a better place because of George Stoney. NYU is a better place because of George Stoney. Thousands of students are better people because of George Stoney.
I think there are some inconvenient histories that sort of mainstream America might want to forget because they make us uncomfortable. And I think George's efforts to represent that part of American history is what keeps, I think, his democratic ideals alive about making sure that we all understand where we come from.
I've told you my organ donation story, haven't I?
About Cashel?
Yes.
Yeah.
So last fall in the session of documentary tradition devoted to propaganda, I showed a half-hour film about organ donation. Remarkable film.
I was driving along yesterday and I saw some children playing in the playground, and it made me think about the fact that one of the first lessons we teach our children is to share. And I think that's very valuable when you look at organ donation. It's because that's the ultimate sharing your life, sharing your person with someone else.
Propaganda, spreading the faith, and with the hope that some results will come. I had a daughter who died at 42, and somebody now has her heart, somebody else has her eyes, somebody has her kidneys. I can't tell you what that means. The assurance that somewhere up there somebody's doing it. Well, we have the organ donation pamphlets here. Judy Siemens, who used to be in the class. Judy, you want to explain how they handle this? And of course, the immediate response is, that's not propaganda. But I passed out organ donation cards, told them about Cashel, and I got most of the class to sign up.
Uh-huh.
I said, that's the way media ought to be used. Combination of testimonial, personal intervention, and viewing.